Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be cracking open Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
Ooh, exciting.
I know, right? And we're so lucky to have you here to help us kind of sift through all the wisdom.
Well, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to be listening to some excerpts from the audiobook. So get ready for like full-on Jordan Peterson storytelling.
Yes.
He doesn't just like give you the rules. He throws in lobsters and biblical tales,
Weird.
witches and skateboarding.
Yeah, he really uses those stories to dive deep into like psychology and human nature.
Right, and he makes it so relatable, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just like a dry lecture on philosophy.
It's not at all.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start by unpacking this analogy that Peterson uses about lobsters and dominance hierarchies.
Okay.
It's a little jarring at first.
Yeah, a little bit.
So he talks about how lobsters have been like battling it out for territory and status for millions of years.
Right.
Like way before us.
Yeah.
And the winners, they don't just get bragging rights. They actually exhibit higher serotonin levels. Oh, interesting.
And that's linked to confidence and less stress and even like attracting more mates.
So it's like a biological advantage.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that it's not just about brute force, like the higher serotonin levels in these lobsters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like linked to this winner's aura. Like they're just healthier and they're just more resilient and they have like a stronger presence.
So they kind of carry themselves differently because they've won.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
And so they're like strutting around, feeling good, and that in itself helps them maintain their position in the hierarchy.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And so Peterson suggests that even though we humans have built these like complex societies, we might not be that different from these feisty crustaceans.
We still have that like primal instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, like think about it. We also navigate social hierarchies in our own ways.
Right.
Those at the top often have more resources, more influence, and yeah, even better health outcomes.
It's true. It makes you wonder, you know, how much of our behavior is driven by these like ancient biological impulses?
Definitely makes you think. And then he throws in this other detail about the lobsters that I thought was just so funny.
Okay, what is it?
So he talks about how the top lobster will actually kick subordinate lobsters out of their shelters at night,
What?
just to remind them who's boss.
Really?
It's like a total power move.
That is so brutal.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
But it's interesting because it makes you wonder, like, how much of that behavior is hardwired into our biology? Like,
Yeah.
are we also programmed to do that?
Right. Or is it the social structures that we create that kind of encourage that kind of behavior?
Yeah, it's a big question.
Big questions.
Yeah.
But before we get too lost in the lobster tank, Peterson throws us a curveball with his second rule. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Well, that's a good one.
Right. And it kind of feels like the opposite of that whole dominance thing.
Yeah.
So he talks about how often people neglect their own well-being. Like they'll give amazing advice to a friend,
Right.
but then completely ignore their own needs.
Yeah.
He even talks about people not following medical advice after receiving organ transplants.
Seriously?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Like you would think someone who had received this incredible gift of life would do everything in their power to like protect it.
Yeah, you think so.
But that's not always the case.
So then why do we do that? Like, why do we sabotage our own well-being?
I know. It's such a weird paradox, right?
Yeah.
Like we can be so compassionate towards others, but then we just don't extend that same kindness to ourselves.
It's like we don't think we deserve it.
Yeah. And you know what? For you listening, are there areas in your life where you could be applying more self-care?
Ooh, that's a good question for everybody.
Yeah, like what are you putting off? Or who are you prioritizing above yourself and why?
Yeah,
It's a question worth pondering.
it is.
Okay, so now shifting gears a bit. Peterson delves into these concepts of order and chaos
Okay.
as like fundamental forces shaping our experiences.
Right.
And he uses masculine and feminine archetypes to represent them.
Okay.
It sounds a bit out there, but it's surprisingly insightful.
It is.
So for Peterson, order represents the known, the structured, the
Yep.
familiar territory.
Okay.
Think of like societal norms or routines or even our biological predispositions. It gives us a sense of security and predictability,
Okay.
but it can also become stagnant if we cling to it too tightly.
Right, because then you can't grow
Right,
if you're not embracing at least a little bit of chaos.
exactly.
Okay.
And then there's chaos, which is all about the unknown, the unpredictable.
Right.
It's the source of both creation and destruction, like constantly throwing us curveballs and forcing us to adapt.
So it could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. It depends on how you look at it, right? And how you respond to it.
Yeah.
So think about unexpected events, personal upheavals, even new ideas that just challenge our existing worldview.
Right.
So chaos disrupts that established order, which can be unsettling,
Yeah.
but it also creates the potential for growth and evolution.
Well, you need a little bit of both.
You do.
Okay.
So to illustrate this, Peterson uses the analogy of the Garden of Eden.
Ooh, I love that story.
It's such a familiar story.
Right.
But he gives it a new spin. So he says, order is the garden itself, this paradise of innocence and abundance.
Okay.
And
Cool.
chaos. Well, that's the serpent tempting Eve with knowledge and disrupting that blissful ignorance.
So chaos is what kind of shakes things up
Yeah.
and introduces like free will and choice.
Right. It's just a
something-
powerful metaphor for the human condition.
It really is.
You know, we're drawn to the comfort and predictability of order, but we're also fascinated by the unknown, by the potential for growth and change that chaos represents.
And we see this playing out all the time, like in our own lives.
Totally. Think about it. Where do you encounter this in your own experiences?
Yeah.
Maybe it's in your career, your relationships, or even just your daily routines. Like, how do you navigate that push and pull between the familiar and the unknown?
Yeah. What does your chaos look like?
Exactly.
Classic.
Okay, buckle up, because Peterson doesn't shy away from the tough stuff.
Okay.
He tackles truth and lies head on with his rule. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And he gets really personal with this one, sharing a story about encountering a schizophrenic patient at the hospital.
Wow.
And this encounter was like a turning point for him. He realized he was often like manipulating the world with his words, even lying to himself without really confronting the consequences of those actions.
Oh, wow.
So it was a wake-up call to the insidious nature of deceit,
Okay.
like how it erodes trust and undermines the very foundation of our relationships.
Right.
And he doesn't just focus on those big dramatic lies. He talks about how even small, seemingly harmless white lies
Right.
can have unintended consequences.
Oh.
They chip away at our integrity and create this slippery slope towards bigger deceptions.
It's so easy to justify those little white lies, though, right?
It is.
You know, you're protecting someone's feelings or avoiding conflict.
Oh, yeah.
But like you were saying, they create more problems than they solve in the long run.
Totally. They can damage our relationships and even lead to a loss of self-respect.
It's true.
So think about it. Have you ever told a white lie, even with good intentions? What were the motivations behind it? And looking back, were there any unforeseen consequences?
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one.
It's a tough question,
Yeah.
but it's worth considering.
Definitely.
Yeah, because even though it's challenging to always be truthful, Peterson argues that honesty, even when it's difficult, is crucial for personal growth and building genuine connections.
Right.
It's about aligning our actions with our words and living with integrity. And that leads us to another powerful rule. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't.
Okay.
This might seem obvious, but Peterson brings it to life with the story about meeting a woman who, surprise, was a witch.
A witch.
Yeah, and her coven spent time visualizing world peace.
Oh, wow.
So it's a reminder that we should approach conversations with genuine curiosity and an open mind. Even if you don't agree with someone, they might offer a perspective that you haven't considered before.
Totally. I love that.
Yeah.
And you can learn something from everyone, even if it's what not to do.
Exactly. It's not about blindly accepting everything you hear. It's about truly listening, engaging with different viewpoints, and recognizing that everyone has something unique to offer.
Yeah.
So how often do you truly listen with an open mind, assuming that the other person might actually know something you don't?
That's a good one.
Are you more focused on proving your point or genuinely trying to understand their perspective?
That deep.
It's something to be mindful of.
Yeah.
Okay, now get ready for this one, because Peterson tackles parenting with a rule that might raise some eyebrows. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding.
Okay, I've heard this one. I'm interested to hear your take.
Yeah, it sounds kind of out there, but he makes a really interesting point. So he was watching these kids fearlessly skateboarding, pushing their limits and taking risks, and it made him reflect on the importance of allowing children to face challenges and develop resilience.
Right.
So Peterson argues that kids need to encounter obstacles and even experience setbacks in order to learn, grow, and build confidence. When we try to shield them from every risk, we actually hinder their development.
Right.
And he even goes as far as to say that anti-skateboarding measures, like those ugly metal bumps they put on ledges, are a reflection of our distrust and resentment towards young people.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like we're trying to control their spirit instead of nurturing it.
That's a good point.
It is a thought-provoking idea, especially for those of you who are parents or work with children.
Yeah.
How do you strike that balance between keeping kids safe and allowing them the freedom to explore, experiment, and even fail?
Right, because failure is a part of learning.
It is big time.
So true.
And finally, we arrive at Peterson's last rule, and this one might seem oddly specific. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street.
Okay, I love this one.
You might be thinking, what does this have to do with anything? But trust me, it gets deep.
Okay.
So he starts by talking about his own dog, Sicko,
Okay.
and the humor he finds in its many nicknames. Scum dog, rat hound, you name it.
Okay.
But beneath that lightheartedness, there's a deeper message about finding beauty and meaning even in the most mundane moments.
So it's like appreciating the little things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly. Peterson is touching on this profound truth. Life is filled with both joy and suffering.
Right.
And it's often in those small, seemingly insignificant moments of connection and appreciation that we find solace and meaning.
Yeah.
So like petting a cat or taking a walk in nature,
Right.
listening to your favorite music, these are all ways to reconnect with that sense of wonder and appreciation.
And he ties this to his daughter's story too, right?
Yes. And he ties this to his daughter's story, who faced years of chronic pain enduring surgeries and setbacks.
Wow.
But even amidst that suffering, she displayed incredible resilience and a capacity to find joy and purpose.
It's so inspiring.
It is.
Yeah.
Her story highlights our innate ability to adapt and overcome challenges. It's a reminder that even when life throws us curveballs, we can still find meaning and connection in the simplest things.
Yeah. Love that.
So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this question. What are those small, seemingly insignificant things that bring you a sense of joy and peace? What helps you to appreciate the beauty and wonder of life, even amidst its challenges?
Oh, yeah. What are those little things for you listening?
Yeah, it's a question worth reflecting on.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in part 2.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life,
Yeah.
picking up where we left off. Exploring the idea of self-care and what it really means to treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Yeah.
It's a powerful concept.
It is.
It goes beyond just like, pampering yourself,
Right.
bubble baths and spa days.
Totally.
It's about taking ownership of our well-being, both physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Peterson doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, he doesn't.
He calls us out on our tendency to put everyone else's needs before our own,
Right.
often to our detriment.
Yeah.
He uses this really thought-provoking phrase,
Okay.
fallen creatures,
Fallen creatures.
to describe how we often view ourselves. It's like we inherently believe we're not worthy of love, care, and forgiveness.
Ooh, that's deep.
Right.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
this can lead to a cycle of self-sabotage.
Like we get in our own way. Okay.
So he talks about our ancestors, battling their impulsive, selfish desires.
Yeah.
They had to tame their inner beast.
Yeah.
And while that's still a challenge for many, Peterson argues that in our modern world, there's this new beast to contend with.
Okay, what's that?
Passivity.
Passivity.
Yeah.
Okay.
We often avoid conflict at all costs.
Right.
Prioritizing peace over authenticity.
Interesting.
And while that might seem virtuous on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
Peterson argues that it can be just as detrimental as unchecked aggression.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it can lead to feelings of powerlessness, resentment,
Right.
and a disconnect from our true selves.
Okay.
And he shares this story
Okay.
about his sister's roommate, Ed,
Okay.
who is like a textbook example of someone stuck in a rut.
Okay.
Ed had potential, but was content with a dead-end job surrounded by people who didn't challenge him to grow.
So he was kind of just coasting.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was essentially choosing to stay stagnant. It's a cautionary tale, right?
It is.
Peterson highlights the danger of complacency
Mm-hmm.
and the importance of pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones.
Yeah.
He contrasts Ed with his own sister, who was constantly pushing boundaries, traveling the world,
Right.
embracing new experiences.
So she was living a more adventurous life.
Totally.
Okay.
And it's not about judging Ed,
Right.
but rather emphasizing that we always have a choice.
Okay.
We can either choose growth, even if it's uncomfortable,
Right.
or we can settle for a life that's less than what we're capable of.
It's true. We always have a choice.
We do.
Yeah.
And this ties into Peterson's belief that we all have the potential for greatness,
Yeah.
that we can be the heroes of our own stories.
Mm-hmm.
He uses this beautiful analogy from T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets
Okay.
about finding the still point of the turning world.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It's at finding that inner compass, that source of meaning and purpose that guides us, even when the world feels chaotic and overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But to access that compass,
Okay.
Peterson argues we need to confront the darkness within ourselves.
Our shadows.
Our shadows, yeah. We need to acknowledge our flaws,
Right.
the parts of us we'd rather keep hidden.
Yeah.
And he suggests that true strength lies not in denying our imperfections, but in facing them head-on with courage and honesty.
I love that.
And this brings us to one of Peterson's most controversial topics,
Okay.
truth-telling.
Yeah.
He even goes as far as to say that lying can lead to a kind of personal hell.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, that might sound extreme,
Yeah.
but he's making a point about the corrosive nature of deceit,
Okay.
how it erodes trust,
Mm-hmm.
undermines relationships,
Right.
and ultimately leads to a sense of isolation and despair.
Wow.
And he recounts this story
Okay.
about working with a violent alcoholic patient named Dennis.
Okay.
And instead of sugarcoating things, Peterson told Dennis honestly why he wouldn't give him money,
Mm.
and he chose authenticity over manipulation.
Okay.
And it had a profound impact.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dennis respected him for it, and their relationship actually strengthened as a result. It's a powerful example of how honesty, even when it's difficult, can be a catalyst for positive change.
I like that.
Yeah, and Peterson contrasts this with what he calls manipulating the world,
Okay.
like using words to get what we want without regard for truth or integrity.
Right.
He calls this the realm of spin doctors,
Conductors.
marketers,
Mm-hmm.
and even those who just try to please others at the expense of their own authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about recognizing that our words have power.
Yeah.
They can either build trust and connection, or they can erode the very foundations of our relationships.
Right. They can build up or they can tear down.
Exactly. And Peterson uses this powerful analogy of a forest fire.
Okay. A forest fire.
When we suppress our mistakes, our dead wood,
Okay.
it builds up until it explodes in this destructive inferno.
Oh.
But when we're honest with ourselves and others,
Uh-huh.
we allow for this natural process of growth and renewal.
Okay.
We clear out the dead wood so that something new and vibrant can emerge.
I like that analogy.
It's a powerful metaphor
It is.
for the transformative power of truth. It's not always easy or comfortable,
Right.
but it's essential for personal growth and living a meaningful life.
Yeah.
And this leads us to Peterson's rule about listening. Assuming the person you're talking to might know something you don't.
I like that one.
It's a simple idea,
It is.
but so often we go into conversations ready to defend our own opinions rather
Yeah.
than truly listening to what the other person has to say.
Yeah, it's true.
And he emphasizes that true listening isn't about waiting for your turn to speak. It's about genuine curiosity,
Right.
a willingness to be surprised by what you hear.
Yeah.
And he even tells this story about a woman he met who was a witch.
A witch, like for real.
Yeah, not in like a Halloween costume kind of way,
Right.
but like someone who practiced witchcraft.
Wow.
And her coven dedicated time to visualizing world peace.
Really?
Yeah,
That's so interesting.
right. It's a reminder that even the most unexpected people can offer valuable insights. It's about approaching conversations with an open mind and a willingness to learn.
It's true.
You never know where wisdom is going to come from, right?
Right.
So being open to hearing different perspectives is essential.
Yeah, I love that.
Peterson argues that genuine conversation is a form of exploration. It's a way to expand our understanding of ourselves, others, and the world we inhabit.
Okay.
And he ties this to the idea of using precise language.
Precise language.
Yeah. He talks about how using clear and accurate language helps us to bring order to the chaos of our inner world.
Oh.
It's like we're shining a light on the tangled mess of our emotions and thoughts,
Right.
allowing us to see things more clearly.
Okay.
And that clarity, Peterson believes, is essential for making wise decisions and navigating life's complexities.
So it's like cleaning up the clutter in our minds.
Yeah.
So we can see things more clearly.
It makes you think about all the times we use vague language or avoid saying what we really mean.
Right. We're not being specific.
Yeah.
Okay.
He challenges us to be more precise in our speech,
Okay.
to say what we mean, and to act in accordance with our words.
Yeah.
It's about aligning our thoughts words, and actions,
Mm.
creating a sense of integrity and authenticity.
So walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this brings us to Peterson's rule about not bothering children when they are skateboarding.
Okay. Yeah, that one always sparks a lot of conversation.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's a rule that often sparks debate,
It does.
but it gets to the heart of Peterson's views on risk-taking resilience
Oh.
and the importance of allowing children to face challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So he was observing these kids fearlessly skateboarding,
Yeah.
pushing their limits and taking risks.
Mm-hmm.
And it made him reflect on how overprotective we've become as a society.
It's true. We do try to like bubble wrap our kids.
We do.
Yeah.
And Peterson argues that children need to encounter obstacles and even experience setbacks in order to develop a sense of mastery and competence.
Okay.
And he even goes as far as to say that those anti-skateboarding measures we see in cities, those ugly metal bumps on ledges,
Right.
are a reflection of our distrust and resentment towards young people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's like we're trying to control their natural inclination towards exploration and risk.
That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
And this connects to a deeper psychological concept that Peterson explores.
Okay.
Resentment.
Resentment.
That bitterness that arises when we feel powerless,
Okay.
when our desires are thwarted.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all felt resentment at some point, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But Peterson warns that allowing it to fester can be incredibly destructive.
Right. It can eat away at you.
Okay. He argues that resentment is often misdirected.
Okay.
Instead of addressing the root cause of our frustration, we lash out at others, becoming cynical and blaming the world for our problems.
Yeah.
And he shares this poignant story about his friend Chris,
Okay.
who was plagued by guilt and resentment, which ultimately led to a tragic end.
Oh, wow.
It's a reminder of how allowing negativity to consume us can have devastating consequences.
It's true.
So how do we deal with resentment in a healthy way?
Yeah, how do we process that?
Peterson suggests confronting the source of our frustration head on,
Oh.
taking responsibility for our own lives and focusing on what we can control
Mm-hmm.
rather than dwelling on what we can't.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And this leads us to his seemingly simple yet surprisingly profound rule about petting a cat when you encounter one on the street.
Oh, yeah, this one's good.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's a rule that often gets a chuckle.
It does.
But it speaks to Peterson's belief in the importance of finding beauty and meaning in the midst of suffering. He starts by talking about his own dog, Sicko,
Okay.
and all of its funny nicknames.
Right.
But beneath the lightheartedness, there's a deeper message about appreciating those small moments of joy and connection, even in a world that can often feel chaotic and overwhelming.
Yeah.
And he ties this to his daughter's story, who endured years of chronic pain.
Right.
Despite the hardship, she found ways to experience joy, beauty, and connection.
So inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her story highlights our innate capacity for resilience. It's a reminder that even when life throws us curveballs, we can still find meaning and connection in the simplest things.
Yeah, I love that.
So as we wrap up the second part of our deep dive,
Okay.
what are those small, seemingly insignificant things that bring you joy? What helps you to appreciate the good, even when life feels difficult?
Yeah.
These are questions worth pondering.
They are.
And we'll be back for our final part.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
Oh, yeah.
It's been quite a journey,
It has been.
exploring everything from, lobster hierarchies to the importance of petting cats. So,
Yeah, where are we going in this last part?
okay, so in this final stretch,
Okay.
we're going to kind of bring it all together. Looking at how Peterson's ideas can help us find meaning and purpose even when life feels really chaotic and overwhelming.
Well, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And remember those concepts of order and chaos we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, Peterson suggests they're not just these abstract forces out there in the universe.
Oh.
They're also deeply embedded in our own psyches.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's not just about external events. It's about how we internally experience the world.
So how we perceive things.
Yeah. So order represents our longing for security, predictability, and those familiar structures that give us a sense of control. It's like that feeling of having a routine,
Right.
knowing what to expect and feeling safe within those boundaries.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. But then chaos throws a wrench in the works.
Wow.
It's all those unpredictable events, personal crises, or even those moments of inspiration that shake things up and force us to reevaluate everything.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I think about those times when you've had to pivot in your career or navigate a sudden loss,
Right.
or even grapple with a new idea that completely changed your perspective.
Yeah.
Those are all examples of chaos, like disrupting the order that we've created for ourselves.
So you're saying we need both.
We need both.
Okay.
Too much order, and we become stagnant.
Yeah.
Too much chaos, and we feel like we're drowning.
Right. We need that balance.
Yeah. So too much order
Okay.
leads to rigidity,
Right.
like a blind adherence to rules
Okay.
that can stifle creativity and growth.
So we get stuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we become afraid to step outside our comfort zones.
Right.
But too much chaos is overwhelming.
It is.
It creates anxiety, uncertainty,
Right.
and a sense of being lost at sea with no anchor.
It's like we're constantly being tossed around by the waves.
And he brings back that Garden of Eden analogy here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, remember how order is the garden itself,
Mm-hmm.
this pristine paradise,
Right.
but also a place of naivete.
Yes.
And chaos, represented by the serpent,
Uh-huh.
is what introduces knowledge, self-awareness,
Right.
and the potential for both good and evil.
It's so true.
So chaos is what jolts us out of that comfort
Yeah.
and forces us to kind of confront the complexities of life.
Right.
It's not always pleasant,
No.
but it's necessary for growth.
Okay. I like that.
And Peterson argues that true meaning and purpose lie in navigating that tension between order and chaos.
Mm-hmm.
It's about finding that sweet spot where we're grounded in our values and have a sense of direction,
Okay.
but are also open to new experiences and challenges.
So we have a foundation.
Yeah.
But we're still flexible.
Totally. It's like being a tightrope walker.
Oh, I like that.
You need that strong, stable rope, which is like your order and your values.
Mm-hmm.
But you also need the flexibility and adaptability to like adjust to the wind and keep your balance when things get shaky.
So it's like having that core, but also being able to like go with the flow?
Yeah,
Okay, that's a good analogy.
right.
Yeah.
It highlights how this isn't about like reaching a final destination.
Mm.
It's an ongoing process of learning, adapting,
Right.
and refining our understanding of ourselves and the world.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Peterson describes it as aiming at the target with our eyes wide open.
Hmm.
So we're not like blindly stumbling through life. We have a vision,
Yeah.
a goal we're striving for,
Right.
but we're also aware that the path might not be straight
Mhm.
and that we need to be open to adjustments along the way.
Yeah.
It's about being intentional,
Okay.
but also adaptable.
So being mindful and present.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he emphasizes the importance of being awake to catch ourselves in the act,
What does that mean?
meaning we need to be mindful of our own biases,
Okay.
our tendencies to self-deceive,
Right.
and our own resistance to change.
So like check ourselves.
Okay.
It's about being honest with ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable.
Right.
And that brings us back to one of Peterson's central themes,
Okay.
truth-telling.
Truth-telling.
It's not just about being honest with others.
Right.
It's about being honest with ourselves.
Okay.
Confronting our own shortcomings and the ways we might be contributing to our own struggle.
So taking ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Peterson believes that when we lie,
Okay.
even those little white lies we tell ourselves or others,
Mm-hmm.
we erode our integrity.
Right.
We create a disconnect
Okay.
between our thoughts, words, and actions.
So things aren't aligned.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Right.
Eventually, those cracks are going to start showing, and the
Yeah.
whole structure becomes unstable.
It's going to crumble.
Exactly. And Peterson challenges us to really examine our motivations,
Okay.
our desires, and the ways we might be manipulating the world around us to get what we want
Mm-hmm.
without considering the consequences.
So thinking about the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
it's about choosing authenticity over expediency, even when it's hard.
Right. Because sometimes it's easier to lie.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And that leads us to Peterson's final rule,
Okay.
the one that always sparks a bit of curiosity. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street.
Right. Everyone loves that one.
Yeah. And on the surface, it seems like a lighthearted,
Yeah.
almost whimsical suggestion.
Right.
But as with so much of Peterson's work,
Mm-hmm.
there's a deeper layer of meaning.
Okay.
It speaks to his belief in the importance of those small acts of kindness and connection,
Mm-hmm.
those moments of joy and appreciation
Right.
that can ground us even when the world feels overwhelming.
So finding those little moments of peace,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a reminder to pause, to be present, to notice those little things that bring us a sense of peace and wonder in a world that often feels chaotic and demanding. It's those small moments of connection
Right.
that can help us find our center.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. And Peterson talks about how petting a cat,
Yeah.
taking a walk in nature, listening to music, or simply spending time with loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
these are all ways to reconnect with that sense of awe and appreciation.
Right.
They're like little anchors
Okay.
that can help us stay grounded when the storms of life are raging around us.
So we have something to hold on to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he connects this back to his daughter's story,
Mm-hmm.
who, as we discussed, endured years of chronic pain.
Right.
And despite those challenges,
Mhm.
she found ways to experience joy, beauty, and connection.
Yeah, she's so inspiring.
And her story is a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
It really is.
It's a reminder that even in the face of immense suffering, we can still find reasons to be grateful, to connect with others, and to appreciate the beauty that exists in the world.
I love that.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this question.
All right.
What are those small acts of kindness, those moments of joy and connection that you can cultivate in your own life? What will you do to find those anchors that help you stay grounded amidst the chaos?
That's a good question for everyone listening.
Yeah, and it's been such a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise.
Until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.